Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So most of you are aware we did get the new content with the territory capture today. And I did see a lot of videos go out about it, about how you do territory capture. And I'll probably end up doing a video on it. I've read through it. I think it's pretty self-explanatory if you've read all of the announcements from Scopely directly. And it does seem like the process itself seems very streamlined. However, I still don't know what they're talking about when they say that, alliances will be limited to the zones of control, because I think this is really the biggest thing that we are concerned about. I would say that this area of space, I'm trying to think of how many alliances could participate in this, and I can't think of anything more. I mean, at the most, I would say probably 15 to 20, because we don't see that many zones here, especially when it comes to tier 3. So we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Am I counting that in 6 tier 3 zones? So that's really limiting it to 6 alliances really playing in this, because from the way I understand it, your alliance is going to need to be in a tier 3 zone, owning it, so you can mine the materials, so you can go over to the research tree and use that material to purchase the research. So I'm really curious how this is going to fly, because I can't really see the top 6 alliances letting go of those systems, or even, a top 1 alliance. Well, I will say this. This is probably what they're getting at. So you have to go into a tier 1 zone, take it, and then go to a tier 2 zone, and so on. So I can see that. I can see multiple tier 1 zones being owned by the same alliance. Possibly not tier 2. Like, I would probably say this section right here would probably go to 1 alliance. And if we're looking at it here, I don't know. I don't know about what a lot of you are thinking with this. This just doesn't seem like this is something where multiple alliances will be taking it, because if a zone that we have here, tier 1 zone, let's just take a look at this one. This is 2-star systems, and are they going to be needing to take those 3 tier 1 zones right there in order to be mining enough materials to do a tier 2 capture? That's really the question, because they have to be in that, from what I understand, they have to be in that tier 1 zone in order to do a tier 2 capture. But they need the materials that they're mining to do a tier 2 capture, which we don't currently have available, because we can't mine in the system. We can only mine in rogue space. And then, of course, let's see, where did it go? These 3 systems here, which is all tier 1 materials. That's tier 1, that's tier 1. Yeah, those are all tier 1 materials. So I'm not really seeing that too much. I think maybe when we do missions, we can kind of go in there and take a look. But I don't see any other systems really where we can go and get that material. So I definitely have issues with a couple of alliances hoarding the entire space. That is definitely a no-brainer. I think the one thing is that they're going to have enough resources to do a capture. However, there isn't anything prohibiting those alliances from, they won't launch a capture, but they'll be there to prevent you from capturing it. So I do like that you are accruing points while not needing to be on a node, but just flying through space. Every minute you earn a point. However, it's yeah, It really depends on how much of a jerk you want to be. But the really big problem that I have with this update is the horrible amount of spending. And so I'm the kind of spender that I will spend definitely on something that will make my ship stronger, that will allow me to do more things, but not necessarily for PvP. I want it to apply for PvP and to do missions. And this, to me, tells me that Scopely is saying, our gamers are pawns. We're going to, more so than before, kind of see how this boxing session ends up and make them outspend one another just so that they can compete with each other. So this isn't about getting an edge. This is about just maintaining, because a lot of the top players on the server are going to be buying these packs. So you're not getting an edge over them. You're just trying to maintain what you have. And this really goes back into the lack of strategy in a PvP game. Don't get me wrong. I don't mind a PvP game. It's not really my forte. But my issue is there has to be some way for a top spender to die. And if the situation is, it just depends on the amount of spending they do, they just show up and blow up everything. Literally, that's not fun. That's not fun. I mean, that's not fun for that whale who's doing that spending. There is nothing to gloat about other than how much you spent on the game. Because typically in games, we gloat a lot with each other. Ha, I took you down, but you didn't see me coming, da, da, da. That sort of thing, because we are using that strategy. We're outthinking the opponent, or at least we think we are. And that doesn't happen in this game. That is the very big problem. And I have a really, really moral and ethical problem with Scopely doing this. It's definitely not giving these players any kind of advantage. And a lot of players are like, ooh, look at my ship power. That's great. But that top dog that you're trying to take down, where you had, only a couple points under him, he's going to buy the pack and maintain that lead on top of you. And since this is going to be for PvP, it's not going to help you take out those harder missions at all, or taking out those hostiles. If that was the case, I would probably have a little bit easier time swallowing that BS pill that they're giving to us right now. And besides the fact of this territory capture, there is not enough space here. I mean, we're finding that with the nodes that we're mining today. Like, there are definitely not enough nodes. They're purposely creating less nodes than the server needs to create more PvP, to create more rage, to create more spending, because they are using that methodology. And this is funny. I have been testing their spending mechanics that they utilize on another one of their games. And that's pretty interesting of what I've learned in that game as well. So I will say, for territory capture, really the only thing you're getting out of it is the research tree. So let's go ahead and take a look at what's in the research tree to get a better understanding of why you are spending everything you're spending on for that research tree. Because everything about territory capture is about this. There is nothing, no other pro to it. Now, I will say you will get certain buffs from those captured systems. However, in the grand scheme of things, I don't see those being beneficial for what we have to put up with here. And I come from a very peaceful server. I don't know how you guys are going to manage on some of those incredibly rogue servers where PvP is just so random. I don't know how you guys, I mean, especially when I hear how much toxic hatred is spewed on those servers, I feel bad for you guys. Just getting that started. So, as we can see here, this is going to be the research for the tier 1. And the one I'm really interested in, because I am very much big on PvE, is the Armada tactics. I really want to see if we can push up our game as an alliance to take on those bigger Armada targets. And so, part of this research I'm really liking. However, part of this research I'm absolutely hating. So, enhance piercing, increase all piercing stats, shield piercing, accuracy, and armor piercing. I have no problem with that whatsoever. Enhance defenses and increases all defense stats. Increasing the officer conditioning. So this is one of those upgrades where I'm like, okay, so since I have Prime, I believe this is only going to be on base stats, so I don't think this improvement is going to be as big as a lot of people would think it would be. Now, this one is a big one. Increased damage against hostiles. This is actually going to be really beneficial for those people hitting those soul traders and a lot of other ships that are going on right now. And I just keep thinking, like, the whole point of my discovery, I mean, yeah, I'm like, God, that was a waste of money to buy discovery summoning because of what we're getting right now. So cargo security, so increased protection, thorough scanning. What is this? Increased ship XP earned from combat. Totally useless. Does not need to be in there. So then we have here tier 2 isogen extraction. Increases the mining rate of tier 2. So from what I understand, you have to have the zone of control in those tier 2 systems in order to get any of this research. That's what I'm really coming into understanding this. And a lot of this research looks great. But if you're not one of those alliances that controls those, then that's going to be a massive problem. Especially when we get to tier 3. And it could be that tier 3 is also going to be level based. So it's going to be for those level 40 players. Prime capture, no damage. Increased damage while occupying. Interesting. So there's another Prime pack. So this whole Prime damage versus players, a lot of people are like, oh my God, this is so great. Not really, because you're not getting an advantage. That's the whole thing for me. If this had to do with all ships, I would say, okay, I am going to be fighting other players, and this is why this is different from Prime officers. Very big difference. I would say, so in this situation, you are just fighting other players. Only applies to other players. That's all it ever does. And so if you're not doing that, which I don't really spend, I spend maybe 1% of my time doing that. And I do the rest with hostiles. Then it's completely worthless. There is no point in this for me. If somebody wants to destroy my ship, go for it. Destroy my ship. I don't care. I will go and set out another ship, and hopefully you don't destroy me again. If you do, you do. I don't really care. However, when it comes to Prime officers is increasing your combat total on your ships because it's increasing the stats of those officers. And that applies when you're doing PvP and PvE. So for me, that is something that's really beneficial. So for me, this is not going to land in the scope of a home run Scopely has done. Now, for a lot of players who love to PvP, they may like this. But I also challenge those people to think that you literally just spent to maintain the status quo. And that's the problem. That's the problem is that when a company has you spending money on something that doesn't give you an impact, and the marketing is done so well to make you think it does, that is where the problem lays for me. I have an issue with Scopely pitting players against one another to make a profit. And of course, yes, this is a PvP game. That's what it is about. However, it is so disgustingly obvious that it's just about spending, because every other game like this, could be about spending, could be about strategy, but strategy is usually always in there. And this is just becoming, less and less of a game that, is really, this whole arc is very lackluster for me. I'll play through it, but this is just really unfortunate. And the funny thing is Scopely has strategy-based games, PvP, PvE. This is not a new thing for them. So I don't understand why they don't take what they've learned on their other projects that they've bought from other companies. So every game that Scopely buys is a pre-existing game that's been fully developed. Scopely doesn't develop anything on its own. And if it does, prove me wrong and tell me what they have created from the ground up. They buy very effective, well-designed games and kind of, run them hopefully not too much into the ground. But that is just the fascinating thing for me. I will talk about that other Scopely property that I have been playing in a little bit here. So going back here, I think the research looks good, but it really depends if your alliance can actually get into that zone and get that resource for you to get so that you can buy that new research. And if we take a look at some of the packs, this is another point of concern I have, is the territory research. They are putting rare and uncommon in here. Does that mean that we are going to be spending this on this new research? This is one other thing that is causing us to lose G3, uncommon, and rare. Because we didn't have enough. We didn't have enough crap to spend this on. Now we have more. And that's a problem. So if we take a look at territory research, so it looks like you can spend your way out of it, so you don't have to be in a zone of control. But hence, there we are, spending more money. And I'm guessing that pack is not the only pack you're going to have to buy if you're going to go that route. So I would say, my very first impression, now that we have a lot of this information right in front of us, is I think it's going to be a complete crapshoot. I don't think this is going to go over well, especially looking at those tier 3 zones. There's not enough for the server. This is all garnered for people to buy PvP packs to maintain the status quo and to take out, other player ships and do their little domination game. As for me, I think I might just go over and continue to work my rogue faction, because I definitely have a lot to do over there, and hunt some hostiles, stay out of everyone's way. I think we might try to do a capture, but I have very little faith in the whole process. So With that being said, um, the last thing I do want to touch on is I have been playing Marvel Strike Force. Now, Marvel Strike Force is a game that's currently owned by Scopely. It was designed and owned by Fox Next Games, which was an offshoot of Fox Television. And I had played it before Scopely owned it, and I re-downloaded it because I was really curious about the purchasing. And it's actually pretty good. I do have to say, I've been having a lot of fun on it. The purchases are so incredibly low compared to this game. And I really wanted to find out why. What is it about that game where it can keep purchases really low? I mean, these purchases, the majority of purchases I spend on that game are 99 cents. Okay. I bought 4 packs tonight. I spent $3.96. I'm not pulling anything on you guys. That's literally how much I spent on that game. And I got what I needed. So I'm like, okay, so what causes that kind of difference in spending? And what I really thought about was it's the player base. It's the amount of active players that exists on each game. Now, Strikeforce has a very large player base, and they're active. Probably, I estimate between 500,000 to 1 million. And it's pretty evident by the packs that you would buy on there. Now, keep in mind, I did buy 1 pack for $25 for the Shield Synergy group, which because it's really hard to grind it out. It takes forever. So I was like, screw it, I'm gonna spend $25. But that's the most I spent on that game in a pack. So then I compared that with Star Trek Fleet Command. And I was like, how do we really figure out the number of players active on the server? Then they came out with that graph about how many discoveries were built. And I was like, that's a really good number because most active players will go through the battle pass, will get a free discovery, and will build it. And so going based off those numbers, there were only 103,000 discoveries built across all servers. That tells me that player base is less than 103,000 players. If that's the case, if that number holds true, and keep in mind, some people got second discoveries, so that number of active players could actually be lower. And that's a major problem for a game, especially a game that has touted, millions of downloads. However, if those millions of downloads don't actually create active players, that's a problem. This is a major problem for Scopely to get investor money. And so I think that is the number one reason. And of course my numbers could be wrong. I'm curious about your thoughts. But I think that's the number one reason why these purchases are so freaking expensive and why they keep pushing the purchases, because they have no one playing this game compared to all of their competition. Now, keep in mind, they don't have a huge player base, but they do make quite a bit of money on this game because of the purchase points that they have set and how they are using those predatory spending habits in relation to gamer psychology that we've talked about. So it's a really interesting situation that I've seen from one game that they own to another game that they own. I'm curious what everyone's thoughts. I firmly believe that the purchases are so incredibly high because they don't have enough people playing this game at all. And I think they might think that's a good thing, but they have long-term goals, and that's going to cause a very big problem. Because if we take a look at and I talk about this on my Discord all the time, if we take a look at some of the platform games that are failing, like Marvel Avengers, lost about $48 million or 48 million of what they expected because they tried to be aggressive with purchases. And these were like $1, $2 purchases. And the players were not having it. They absolutely refused. And so that's the thing you have to think about is Scopely's long-term goal is to get over to PC and console. And I will tell you right now, if Scopely were listening to this, both PC and console players will laugh in your face and not even pick up your game. You'll be lucky if you get your game tested by anyone, if you have purchases anywhere near this on those on those platforms. So that's just something I'm kind of tracking on the side. But this video has gone on longer than I want. Let me know what your thoughts are. Am I being too negative? Am I being too harsh on Scopely? Tell me your thoughts. Make sure you click that subscribe button and that like for future content that I do make for this channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care, and I'll talk with you later.